I wasn't supposed to be in the Trans-Allegheny that night. That's what I keep telling myself, even now, 3 months later, when I still can't sleep without all the lights on. My boyfriend Marcus said it would be fun urban exploration. He called it. Just a quick walk through the abandoned asylum. Some photos for his Instagram, back before midnight. I've always been the cautious one. The girl who checks door locks twice, who doesn't walk alone at night, who reads every true crime story and thinks about how I'd survive. But that evening in late October, I wanted to prove I wasn't scared of everything. I wanted to be the kind of girl who could handle an abandoned hospital in the dark without flinching. We arrived at 10 p.m. sharp. A massive structure loomed against the black sky like something holding its breath. Nearly a quarter mile of gray stone walls, over 900 empty windows staring down at us like hollow eyes that had seen too much and forgotten how to close. The Trans-Allegheny. I'd researched it obsessively before we came. The overcrowding, the violence, the experiments, the thousands of people locked away and simply forgotten by the world. Marcus had the keys through a friend. He knew someone whose uncle worked in preservation, and we slipped through a side entrance marked with a faded authorized personnel only sign. Our flashlights cut through the suffocating darkness, creating strange shadows that seemed to dance independently of where our beams pointed. That's when I felt it. Not saw it, felt it. A presence. A weight. Something in the air that made my skin prickle. The air was different inside. Heavier. Like I was breathing something that had already been breathed thousands of times before by thousands of people who never left. The oxygen felt used up, recycled through lungs and despair. This way, Marcus whispered, even though there was no one to hear us. The hallway stretched impossibly long in front of us, and our footsteps echoed in a way that made it sound like we were walking with invisible people on either side of us. Maybe behind us. The walls were painted a pale institutional green that had begun to peel away like dead skin, revealing older paint underneath, older colors. Older attempts at making this place feel less like a prison. Doors lined the corridor, hundreds of them, all closed, all locked. Metal frames, small reinforced windows, positioned too high for anyone inside to see out of. Patient rooms. I'd read about this in my research. 1,000 rooms that eventually held 3 times as many people as they were designed for. These were patient rooms, I heard myself say. My voice sounded small, fragile. They used to chain people to the radiators in here. We pushed deeper into the building, moving through the darkness like we were moving through the past itself. Marcus was excited, taking photos with his phone, narrating everything like he was the host of some paranormal investigation show. But I wasn't excited anymore. I was alert, hyper-aware. My skin felt wrong, too tight, like something was pressing against it from the inside, trying to get out. Or maybe trying to get in. That's when I heard the first footstep, a single footstep, behind us. In the hallway we just walked through, deliberate, heavy, purposeful. Did you hear that? I grabbed Marcus's arm so hard he winced. Probably just the building settling, he said, but his voice had changed. The excitement was gone, replaced by something careful, something uncertain. Old buildings make noise. We stood still in the darkness, barely breathing. Our flashlight beams created a small circle of visibility in an ocean of black. The footstep didn't come again. We waited in that suffocating silence for what felt like minutes, but was probably only 10 or 15 seconds. My heart was hammering against my ribs, like it was trying to escape. When nothing happened, when the silence stretched on unbroken, we moved forward again, faster this time, more purposefully. The next sound came from above us. Footsteps, pacing, back and forth across what must have been the second floor, like someone who couldn't stop walking, like someone who had to keep moving or they'd disappear completely into the walls themselves. There's no one up there, Marcus said, but his voice had changed again. The skepticism was cracking. I could hear the fear underneath it, raw and real. The building's been sealed for decades. We found the stairs and climbed them. Second floor. The pacing footsteps got closer, more urgent, almost frantic. They moved through the hallway ahead of us, and I could swear I heard the shuffle of fabric. Someone in old clothes. Someone wearing something that rustled. Someone who shouldn't be there. Someone who couldn't be there. My rational mind was screaming at me. This is impossible. Old buildings settle. Sound travels in strange ways through empty spaces. Wind moves through broken windows. There are 1,000 explanations, but my body knew better. Marcus, we need to leave. Now. Just one more. The footsteps stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. It was a listening silence, an aware silence, a silence that felt like held breath. In that moment, standing in the darkness of a building designed to contain madness, I understood something that the history books couldn't explain. Something that defied logic, but felt like absolute truth. Places don't become haunted by ghosts. They become haunted by refusal. By the people who were locked inside these walls and refused, absolutely refused, to accept they were forgotten. I grabbed Marcus and pulled him toward the stairs. We were moving fast now, not caring about being quiet or careful. My flashlight beam was shaking because my hands were shaking. Behind us, I heard something that made every muscle in my body go rigid. It was humming. A low, broken humming, like someone who had learned to make sounds but forgot how to make them mean anything. Words had abandoned them. Language had left them behind. All that remained was this sound. This terrible, endless humming. It followed us down the hallway, getting closer with each second. I didn't look back. I couldn't look back. If I looked back, it would be real. If I looked back, I would have to acknowledge that something was chasing us. We hit the ground floor running. Marcus had the key, and his fingers were fumbling so badly it took 3 tries to get the lock open. The humming was right behind us now. I could feel it more than hear it. It was vibrating in my bones. When we finally burst through the door into the October night, I looked back at the building's silhouette against the stars. A figure stood in one of the second-floor windows. Just a shadow. Just a shape. But it was watching us leave, watching us escape. And I knew with absolute certainty that it was angry. We didn't talk on the drive home. Not because we were shaken. We were, both of us, trembling. But because neither of us wanted to admit what we both knew. That thing wasn't the wind. That thing wasn't the building settling or acoustic anomalies or any of the rational explanations we wanted to believe. That thing was someone who spent so long being ignored that being ignored had become its only language, its only way of existing. But here's what keeps me awake at night, what makes me lock my bedroom door from the inside. 3 days later, I found a photograph on Marcus's camera that he didn't remember taking. A second-floor hallway. Empty. Desolate. And in the reflection of one of the grimy windows, a face. Twisted. Wrong. Standing directly behind where Marcus had been standing when he took the photo. Marcus deleted it. He won't talk about it. He says it was just a glitch in the camera, just a reflection of his own face that looked wrong because of the angle and the light. He's moved on. He's convinced himself it never happened. But I haven't forgotten. And sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone in my apartment with all the lights on, I hear it. Faint but unmistakable. That humming, getting closer, asking me to come back. I don't know why I agreed to it. Maybe curiosity. Maybe arrogance. Or maybe because some places know how to pull you in long before you ever see them. This happened when I was 24, and I still don't sleep right. Back then, I was filming short documentaries with a cheap camera and a borrowed microphone. I wasn't trying to chase ghosts, just old buildings, forgotten places, pieces of history left to rot. Penhurst State School had been abandoned for decades, but it wasn't dead. Everyone in Pennsylvania seemed to know something about it. The rumors traveled faster than facts. Children tied to beds, screams echoing through vents, nurses who whispered apologies into walls as if the walls were listening. I should have taken them more seriously. I went during late autumn, the cold kind that sinks through your jacket. The air feels thinner that time of year, almost like the world is waiting for something. I parked a short walk from the property and made my way down the cracked asphalt road. The forest pressed in on both sides, bare branches, dead leaves, the kind of silence that doesn't belong outdoors. When the asylum finally came into view, it looked like a fortress in the middle of the woods. Tall brick buildings, broken windows, vines gripping the walls, like fingers refusing to let go. The moment I stepped through the shattered entrance of the administration building, I felt something shift. Not the air, not the temperature, me. Like I'd crossed into a place that remembered everyone who'd ever walked inside, like it had noticed me. I kept the camera running anyway. The hallways were worse than the photos peeling paint. Paperwork scattered across the floor, metal bed frames rusting into the walls. A single child's shoe sat in the middle of the corridor, perfectly upright, untouched by dust. I stepped around it. My voice echoed softly as I narrated for the recording. But the echo sounded delayed, like my words hit the walls and paused before returning. I told myself it was acoustics. I told myself a lot of things that day. Penhurst is huge, and it's easy to get lost if you don't know where you're going. I headed toward the old children's ward, a long wing I'd read about online. The closer I got, the colder it felt. Not winter cold. Air conditioner cold. Artificial? Wrong. About 10 minutes in, I shut off my flashlight just to see something how much the moonlight actually reached. The entire hall glowed faintly blue through the broken windows. Dust floated like snow. For a moment, it was almost beautiful. Then something clicked behind me. A soft metallic tick, like someone tapping a bed frame. I froze. Another click. Closer. I turned slowly, raising my light. The hallway was empty. Completely empty. But the camera in my hand, still recording, picked up a flicker of movement. Just for a split second. A shadow crossing the far end of the hall. Not shaped like a person. Longer. Thinner. I swallowed hard and turned the camera off. Some things you don't want to capture twice. Inside the children's ward, the smell changed. Less dust. More rot. Like something old and wet trapped between the walls. There were cribs in the rooms, small metal cages with bars so narrow a child's hand couldn't have slipped through. I walked past one and felt something brush the back of my jacket. I spun around so fast I almost fell. No one there, but something had touched me. My heart hammered. I whispered to myself, "Stay calm." But even my whisper felt too loud. In the center of the ward was a room I'd heard rumors about, the quiet room. A place where children who cried too loudly were locked for hours, or days. The door hung crooked on its hinges. I nudged it open with my foot, shining my light inside. Small room, concrete walls, scratch marks, hundreds of them. Clawing, reaching, almost patterned. Then I heard it. A sound you never want to hear in a place like that. A child humming, soft, tuneless, coming from the hallway behind me. My body turned before my brain did. The beam of my light shook as I raised it. The hall was empty, but the humming continued. Slow, monotone. A few notes repeating over and over, like someone rocking themselves for comfort. I backed into the quiet room, pressing against the far wall. I don't know why I thought that was safer. Maybe because the room was small and I could see the whole thing. Maybe because I didn't want anything behind me. The humming stopped. A second of silence. Then, from directly outside the door, a whisper. Remember. My breath caught. It wasn't a child's voice. It was deeper, adult, male, barely above a breath. I didn't move. Couldn't. Something shifted in the hallway. A shadow passing across the doorway. Slow, dragging. I forced myself to raise the camera, hands trembling. I hit record. If something was out there, I needed proof. As soon as I pressed the button, the door slammed shut. I screamed and dropped the camera. The force shook dust from the ceiling. The doorknob rattled, metal clicking against metal. Something pressed against the other side, something heavy. I pushed back instinctively, bracing the door with my shoulder. That's when I heard it. Breathing, not mine. Slow, raspy breath seeping through the crack between the door and the frame. I felt the vibration of it against my cheek. I whispered, "Please stop." The breathing paused. Then a low voice right beside my ear. "It's your turn." I shoved the door with everything I had. It didn't move at first, then suddenly swung open, so fast I fell into the hallway. Empty, completely empty. The hallway stretched silent and blue again, as if nothing had happened at all. I snatched the camera off the floor and ran. I didn't care if I dropped gear, didn't care where I stepped. I just ran until the entrance came into view. I burst outside, gasping, stumbling into the cold night air. I didn't stop until I reached the car. I sat there for half an hour before I could turn the key. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. A week later, when I finally opened the camera files, most of the footage was unusable static, distortion, strange interference I'd never seen before. But one clip played. The moment the door slammed, you can see the camera hit the ground. You can hear my breathing shallow, fast, terrified. And faintly, in the background, just before the footage cuts, a voice whispering a single word, "Remember." I deleted the file. I still hear it sometimes. Usually late at night, when the house is quiet. Usually when I walk past a darkened room. Penhurst is closed now. The gates locked. The windows boarded. But some places don't stay silent just because we walk away. Some voices keep talking long after the rooms are empty. And Penhurst never learned how to be quiet. I wasn't planning to film alone. I promised myself I wouldn't go back there without a partner, someone to watch the stairwells, the long hallways, the blind corners. Waverly Hills isn't just big. It's alive in a way that old buildings shouldn't be. But last November, on a night colder than it should have been, I broke that promise. This happened when I was 26. And even now, when someone mentions Louisville, my chest tightens like I can still smell the mildew of that place. Waverly Hills sits on a hill that feels too tall and too quiet. There's a long road leading up to it narrow, lined with trees that look dead even in summer. I remember turning off my headlights at the top, just to see the building the way it wanted to be seen. The silhouette hit me first. 5 stories of black windows. No reflection. Just darkness. I stepped inside through a rusted door someone had pried open months earlier. Immediately, the air felt wrong, heavy, warm, like the building was still breathing out the last exhale of the patients who died there. Waverly Hills wasn't an asylum. It was a tuberculosis hospital. People came here to breathe, and most never did again. They say the building holds around 60,000 deaths. Walking those halls, I believed it. I started on the first floor, sweeping my flashlight through rooms filled with peeling paint and the ghosts of old metal beds. Nothing unusual at first, just the expected kind of decay. But as I walked deeper, my light flickered. Not off, just dimmer, like something was pulling energy from it. I checked the battery. Full. That was the first sign. The second was the smell. Cold, damp concrete has a scent you get used to. But suddenly, the air shifted into something sweeter, thicker, almost floral. A smell people used to call the TB rose, the scent of infected lungs. It hit me so strongly, I gagged. I tried to keep narrating for the camera, but my voice sounded too loud, bouncing in a hallway that felt too narrow. Then something small rolled across the floor behind me. A glass vial, stopped at my feet. I didn't touch it. I've learned not to touch things in places like these. I picked up the camera and moved on. The third sign came in the solarium, a large room with curved windows where patients once lay in rows, hoping sunlight might cure them. Moonlight poured in now, cold and pale, illuminating dust drifting like falling ash. I stepped inside, my boots crunching on broken glass. That's when I heard footsteps above me, slow, measured, pacing back and forth. But Waverly doesn't have security anymore. And even if someone else had broken in, the rhythm of the footsteps wasn't normal. They were heavy and uneven, like someone dragging one leg behind them. I stood completely still. The footsteps paused. Then they started again directly above my head. I backed out of the solarium, breathing hard. My voice recorder picked up my heartbeat thudding like a drum. I shouldn't have gone to the third floor. But the staircase was right there, and curiosity can be louder than fear. The third floor is where things get personal. At least for me, it's darker up there. No broken windows, no moonlight. Just long hallways full of rooms that still smell like bleach beneath the mold. Room 312 is the one people talk about most. A nurse hung herself there. They say you can feel sadness in the air, thick like humidity before a storm. I walked toward it slowly, my footsteps sounding too soft, like the building was absorbing the sound. Halfway down the hall, I felt a breeze behind me. Not a draft. A breeze. Cold, intentional. Like someone walking past my shoulder. I spun around so fast the camera strap swung from my wrist. The hall was empty. But the dust in the air was moving, shifting, swirling like something had just disturbed it. My throat tightened. Every instinct in me said leave. But I kept walking. When I reached room 312, the door was already open. Of course it was. I lifted my flashlight and stepped inside. The room looked ordinary at first, just old furniture, cracked tiles, an empty space where the bed once stood. But the far corner was darker than the rest of the room. Not shadowed, dark, like the light refused to reach it. As I filmed, the temperature dropped so quickly my breath fogged, and then something whispered behind me. A woman's voice, soft, close, right behind my ear. Don't stay? My entire body locked. I turned so slowly I felt each vertebra in my neck shift. No one there, but the hallway outside the room had changed. When I'd entered, it was empty. Now something stood at the far end of it. A figure, tall, thin, still, silhouetted in the darkness. I couldn't see a face, couldn't even see clothes. Just the outline wrongly proportioned, like the spine was bent too far backward. I didn't breathe. It took one step toward me. A slow, dragging step. That sound, the scrape of its foot on the floor, will stay with me forever. I backed into the room, grabbing the doorknob. But before I could slam it shut, the figure took another step, and I realized something. It wasn't walking. It was gliding. Its feet weren't lifting at all. I slammed the door and stumbled back. The camera recorded everything, the shaking, my breathing, the creak of the building. Then, knuckles, tapping on the other side of the door. Slow, gentle, deliberate, not trying to get in, just reminding me it was there. The tapping stopped. Complete silence. I waited 30 seconds that felt like 30 minutes, then cracked the door open just enough to look out with the camera. The hallway was empty. But on the wall opposite the room, something new had appeared. Handprints, dozens of them, pressed into the dust, trailing down the hall like someone had dragged their hands along the wall while being led away. I didn't stay to see where they ended. The fastest I've ever moved in my life was running down those stairs. I didn't stop until I hit the main floor, bursting into the old lobby, where the smell hit me again. The sweet TB rose smell, so thick it filled my mouth. And in the middle of the lobby, lying where the moonlight touched it, a glass vial, the same one that had rolled behind me earlier. But this time, it wasn't empty. Something red filled the bottom. Just a drop, thick, fresh. Blood shouldn't stay that color in a place abandoned for decades. I backed away so fast I tripped over a broken chair, hit the floor hard, scrambled up, and ran for the exit. The night outside felt too bright, too open, too safe. I didn't stop moving until I was inside my car with the doors locked. When I checked the footage the next morning, most of it looked normal except one part. When the figure was in the hallway, my camera caught something I hadn't seen with my own eyes. A face, not clear, just the impression of one. Distorted by distance and shadow, but unmistakable. The mouth was open, like it was screaming silently. I deleted that clip, but sometimes when I'm drifting off to sleep, I'll hear it again, the soft knock on the door of room 312, slow, gentle, deliberate, like something waiting for me to come back.